It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good Saturday afternoon. Hope you're having a great Saturday afternoon. If you have not gotten out there yet, you need to go out to the Wings Over Bryant show. There's plenty of time to get out there. You can get a ticket at the gate. You will have to pay cash at the gate. You may still be able to pick your tickets up from a Big Red on the way there, but I would highly encourage you to get out there. They've got like 25 booths, 20 food trucks, and some great air show displays going on. It'd be a great place for you to spend a little time with your family, Dad, to celebrate Father's Day weekend. And do want to remind everybody, I hope that you have a great Father's Day tomorrow, and remember to thank God, Him, our Heavenly Father, and your dad here on earth for all the things they do for you. And speaking about being a dad, we have a dad on the line, Senator Tom Cotton. Senator Cotton, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the Kim Hammer Show today.
Hey, Kim, this is actually James Arnold. I'm going to need to conference in Senator Cotton. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize you were going to do an intro there.
Hey, that's totally fine. You go ahead and do that and get him conferenced in, and let me tell the folks what the rest of the show is going to be like, and then as soon as he jumps in, I'll transition back.
All right, he should be on in about 15 seconds.
Okay, well, we'll just hold on. We'll just listen to me talk for a second, because this is talk show, and this is live talk show host, so you got to be able to improvise. We do have a good rest of the show coming up. We're going to talk about broadband. So that's a hot topic here in the state. Had a big meeting yesterday in ALC. You'll want to stay on for the rest of this after we have an interview with Senator Tom Cotton.
Hey, Kim, we should have Senator Cotton here on the line. And if we could keep it to 15 minutes, that would be great.
Hey, we will respect his time. I appreciate it. Senator Cotton,
hey,
are
Kim,
you?
Good to be. I'm good. I hope you're well.
I am good. Happy Father's Day to you, first of all. Hope you have a great one and get to be with your family on Sunday tomorrow.
All I want for Father's Day is the right to play golf on Mother's Day.
Spoken like a true senator who knows how to leverage and bargain. Good job. Good job. Hey, I know your time is valuable, precious, and I really appreciate you taking time out to be on the Kim Hammer Show. I've got a list of items that are of interest to Arkansans here that I think you would be a good expert to speak on. The first one is regarding the virus and Dr. Fauci. What are the efforts underway to hold him accountable, as well as others that are responsible for their involvement of what I'm going to refer to as the China virus?
Well, Kim, let's take a step back before we get to Dr. Fauci and look at the so-called public health experts, the scientific establishment, the Democrats and the media, and how they treated this pandemic from the very beginning. When I was first ringing the alarm last January about this novel coronavirus, they were busy impeaching President Trump. And then when I pointed out in a very common sense notion that this virus, which supposedly originates with bats, didn't start in some remote mountain village, next to a cave full of bats. It started in a city larger than New York, right down the street from the laboratory where they research these viruses, a laboratory that's run by a woman whose nickname is literally the Bat Lady. What did the Democrats and the media do? And what did Dr. Fauci do? They reacted hysterically. They said it was a conspiracy theory and debunked lies, and it wasn't possible. Of course it was possible. And of course, any Arkansan with an ounce of common sense would look at those labs first and foremost. Now, Dr. Fauci has finally started backpedaling, acknowledging that, yes, it's at least possible, as there's been some cracks in the scientific facade. He's also been called out in Congress for the fact that his agency funded some of the so-called gain-of-function research in these labs, where scientists try to make a virus more dangerous and more contagious after he suggested for the longest time he shouldn't. That's why I've said that it's time for Dr. Fauci to go. The American people can no longer trust his politicized advice after all of these evasions and misdirection. And if he's not willing to resign, then Joe Biden should hold him to account and remove him from his position.
He would never started backpedaling unless you put pressure on him, the way that, the conservatives that have aligned with you began to put the pressure on him out there. So with regards to his backpedaling. I guess one question I have also is why did he fund their labs? And if we were going to do that, why would we not do it in our labs where we could trust that it would have been handled better than China? Or should we have done it at all?
Yeah, no, Kim, we should not be funding research in Chinese labs. We certainly should not be funding dangerous, risky research in Chinese labs. I would remind all of your listeners, Kim, that President Obama prohibited federal funding for the so-called gain-of-function research. He believed that the risks outweighed the potential benefits of studying the way viruses operate. It would appear that Dr. Fauci and his agency, funded this research in the Chinese lab despite President Obama's directive. It was at least in violation of the spirit of that directive, if not in violation of the letter of that directive. And they did that, I think, because, as you see so often with bureaucrats, they think they know better. They think they know better than our elected officials in both parties. They don't want to be accountable to our people through the normal course of democratic elections. In many cases, they are little more than activists in white lab coats. And you're right that Dr. Fauci would have never acknowledged the funding of this research in those labs if it hadn't been for my efforts and the efforts of other Republicans in Congress during his appearances to testify to repeatedly call him out for his evasions and his word games. This is just one example of why so many Arkansans have lost confidence in him. I'll give you another example. Do you remember last year how he was saying that we're going to reach herd immunity whenever 70% of the population is vaccinated or has been infected with the coronavirus? And then it was 75, then it was 80, then it was 85, and he kept moving the goalposts. And he has acknowledged that it had nothing to do with our evolving understanding of the virus. It had nothing to do with new scientific data. It had to do what he thought the American people were ready to hear. I think most Arkansans are ready to hear the truth, and they were ready from the beginning of this pandemic, and it's deeply disappointing to see Tony Fauci and other activists in white lab coats claiming that they know better than the people of Arkansas.
Is there hope that you can give citizens that they are going to be held accountable? Because when you look at everything else going on, look at the FBI and all the other law enforcement agencies that are under the Biden administration, I think part of the frustration is that people that it appears have done wrong, they're not even trying to investigate or even get to the bottom of things. They just are going on to the next subject matter. Is there any hope you can give that Dr. Fauci and others are actually going to be investigated and be held to the full letter of the law, whatever that is?
Well, so I'm not going to stop, Kim, in my personal efforts to get to the bottom of exactly what the NIH did when it funded that research. Nor, Kim, on another matter, am I going to stop in my efforts to hold the Center for Disease Control accountable for its gross failures in February of 2020 to get testing kits out to our states early, when the CDC prohibited private laboratories and state-run laboratories from developing their own tests. And it turns out the CDC test was contaminated from the very beginning. Or the CDC's continued politicized advice under the Biden administration. Unfortunately, I can't make that pledge, Kim, for my Democratic friends in the Congress. They are in large part invested in covering up what was happening at the CDC and at the National Institutes of Health, in part because they are politically aligned with these liberal activists in white lab coats. So one of the most important things we could do to ensure accountability is win back control of the Congress next year, so it will be Republicans in charge of these committees. Republicans are issuing the demand letters, Republicans who are calling the hearings and issuing subpoenas.
Okay, and that moves us on to the next topic, but I want to say something before we move away from that one. I know your time is valuable, but the fact that you broke this when you did, and if you can't say, that's okay, I'm not going to press you, but you either you are really either a good prophet, crystal ball, or you knew something that gave you the confidence to put you out on the limb to be able to say this isn't right. I remember Trent Garner ran some legislation here in the state, and he was called down by the Democrats and even some other Republicans that, would support your theory at the time or your position at the time. For you to come out on the limb the way you did, What was it that gave you the basis to have that confidence?
Tim, it was nothing more, nothing less than good old Arkansas common sense.
There you go.
I can tell you, I sit on the Intelligence Committee. There was not much intelligence products coming in from China about this virus. There were public reports, though. They were freely available. Anybody who wasn't obsessed about the impeachment trial could have read them. Now, granted, they were in somewhat obscure places. You know, they weren't in American newspapers, but, you know, Asian news sources in the English language, medical journals. If you wanted to know what was happening in Wuhan in January of 2020, you could know. Just that most people were obsessed in Washington with the impeachment trial. But it was obvious to me, if you contrasted Chinese communist rhetoric and actions, something significant was happening in Wuhan. So their rhetoric was very calming and very soothing. They said, don't worry, we have it under control. This virus is not transmitted from humans to humans. And then their actions were doing things like welding shut the doors of high-rise apartment buildings to keep people locked in, or shutting down provinces that have more population than the entire West Coast of America. Obviously, there was a mismatch between their words and their actions. And when Chinese communists take those actions in contrast to their words, I think you should look to their actions. And you should say that this is a serious public health danger and we need to take action now. That's one of the reasons why I told President Trump from the very beginning to ground all the planes from China. And, you know, Joe Biden called it hysteria and xenophobia. And he has since acknowledged that it's one of the most important things we did to buy a little bit of extra time so we didn't get hit quite as hard as countries like Spain and Italy got hit in February of 2020.
Right. You guys are being exonerated now. You know, didn't pass the smell test on the front end, but now as more evidence is coming in, is proving more and more along the lines that you're right. Let's move on to something you hit on a while ago. One of the concerns being expressed by constituents is the ability to motivate our conservatives to get out the vote, to take back the Congress in 2022, so you can do what you said a while ago, and that is, you know, serve those letters and get people in there and take control of the narrative. What do you see it's going to take to motivate conservatives to get out and vote? You got Governor Abbott down there building the wall in Texas. You've got, you got Biden's choice to head up ATF, which just shows that his agenda and the Democrat agenda is taking us further down the road to destruction. How can you, and we're a state that I think people are going to get out to vote, but what do you have to say, or what do we need to do in order to get people motivated to get out to vote and not be discouraged by what happened last time?
Well, Kim, you cited what may be the single biggest motivator for a lot of our Republicans across Arkansas and across the country, which is Joe Biden and his radical agenda. There's never been anything centrist or moderate about Joe Biden. He's been a liberal from the very beginning. You know, he happened to run in a primary against some socialists like Bernie Sanders, so he knew he wasn't going to be the leftmost candidate in the Democratic primary in 2020, so he tried to present himself as a centrist, but he's been a down-the-line liberal from the very beginning. So no one should be surprised that Joe Biden has essentially opened up our borders, or that he appointed a radical gun grabber to head up the ATF, or that he's proposing $6 trillion in new taxes and new spending, or on the international front, that he would gut our military, that he would essentially surrender to Iran and Vienna if the Ayatollahs would ever accept the terms of surrender. No one should be surprised that Joe Biden is governing as a far left liberal. And if they want to stop it, if they want to put the brakes on the Biden agenda and set the stage for winning back the White House as well in 2024, the single best thing they can do is get out next year and vote for Republicans up and down the ballot.
With the time that is between now and 22, when you take over, and the aggressive agenda that the Democrats are advancing, including trying to stack the Supreme Court as issues like, gun laws and abortion get up there. I mean, the Democrats are fast tracking to get as much done as they can by 2022. How much damage do you think will be done between now and then? And is it going to be irreversible even if you get hold of the Congress with conservative Republicans? Do you think that we're going to be able to hang on?
Yeah, well, that's part of the Democrats' agenda now. They don't just want to raise your taxes and confiscate your guns. I mean, they want to do that, But we can undo those things when we take office. We can cut your taxes. We can respect your Second Amendment rights. That's what Republicans do. The Democrats are trying to rig the rules of our democracy so Republicans never take power again by, as you say, packing our courts, making Washington, D.C. a state so they get 2 more Democratic senators in the Senate, federalizing our elections so they can run Arkansas's elections just like they run California's elections. At the moment, they don't have the votes to do those things, in part because those aren't popular. So what I would suggest to my Democratic friends is, rather than trying to change the rules of the Senate and the rules of our democracy, they should change their unpopular agenda a little bit so they can get more votes. It wasn't that long ago, Kim, that Democrats could win in a place like Arkansas or Nebraska or the Dakotas. They still have Democrats that get elected in places like West Virginia. So maybe the Democrats should just change their agenda a little bit, not be so radical, and they wouldn't have to worry about winning elections in the middle part of the country.
Honestly, I hope they maintain the course they're on, because I think that'll be a motivation to get people out in 2022 and we can take a bigger gap in Congress. But, that's a political strategy there. I know you only had about 15 minutes. You got any more time, or you need to go?
I've got to go, Kim. I'm sorry.
No. Hey, I appreciate the time that you've given us. This is Senator Tom Cotton that's joined us today on the Kim Hammer Show, speaking about some vital issues. And Tom, I hope Senator Cotton, I hope to get you back on in the future, and I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great Father's Day. Get to spend some time with your family, and maybe she'll let you go play golf if you're lucky.
We'll see next year. I doubt so, but we will have a good Father's Day with our family, and I wish a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there as well.
Thank you. That's Senator Tom Cotton, and we appreciate him. He is referred to as the junior senator here in Arkansas, but he is a major league player on the national level, as well as representing us well here in the state of Arkansas. And so, Senator Tom Cotton, I appreciate you taking time to be on the Kim Hammer Show today to discuss these important issues. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We're going to focus on Wings Over Bryant, that you still have time to get out there today. You can pick up your tickets at Big Red, or you can get one at the gate. Just have cash. They'll only take cash at the gate. There's over 25 vendors out there, which means there's 25 things for the kids and you to do as a family. There's also 20 food trucks. If you can't find something to eat out of 20 food trucks, you're just too darn picky, okay? So get out there and have a great time, not to mention the air show that is going on, and they've got some incredible air acts that are going on out there. They've got things for the kids. It's just a great time. And listen, the weather's not that bad, okay? And they've got plenty of drink stations, plenty of portable pot stations. You got everything you need, and I believe we'll go till about 3:30 this afternoon, so you still got time to get out there and have a great time and listen to this advertisement. It'll give you full more details, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about broadband here in the state of Arkansas.
The largest air show in the South is coming to Bryan, Arkansas. Mark your calendars for the Arkansas Heart Hospital Wings Over Bryant Air Show, June 19th at the Saline County Regional Airport. Featured acts include the high-flying Team Aeroshell, the Bulldog Formation Flight Team, and the 24,000 horsepower jet truck Aftershock. Tickets on sale at all Central Arkansas Big Red stores for only $15, and kids 12 and under get free gate admission. Visit wingsoverbryant.com for more information. It's the Arkansas Heart Hospital Wings Over Bryant Air Show, Father's Day weekend.
Hey, welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you for joining us. That was Senator Tom Cotton, was on just before, and appreciate all the insight that he has given us. And one of the big things to take away from that conversation is we begin now to get people motivated to get out to vote in 2022. We did a really good job, I think, as a legislative branch in order to secure our vote and to make sure that our vote is protected. If you've not heard, there were some things that were issued. There were citations, if you would, some findings, if you would, that were determined by the State Board of Elections. Some of those are going to be going before the board for hearing. Others accepted their findings and settled. And so more about that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And I think it only goes to show why we needed to pass the election laws that we did in order to make sure that our vote, every vote, counts fairly here in the state of Arkansas. And I know, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Senator Cotton about it, but I know that there are efforts going on in Arizona. Some of the constituents are sending out messages about why can't we send a delegation out there that can be investigating, see what they did out there that needs to be done here. Part of that, I would say, is we don't want to clog up the system out there in Arizona by sending people out there unnecessarily. one of the things we know is that here in Arkansas, that our vote laws are protecting the integrity of the vote, with especially what we did this session. And I think we are pretty preserved and safe here in the state of Arkansas. We will be watching and monitoring that. I think that will be a trend that will be going across the nation, as you've heard before. I've had on Attorney Clint Lancaster and his wife Jennifer, who actually worked on the Trump team in Wisconsin, boots on the ground, and they substantiated things that occurred. So I think that as this goes on state by state, it's going to build toward the 2022 election to show injustices that were maybe done that altered the election. But we're doing our part here in Arkansas. So rest assured, there are eyes that are watching and things that are being done in order to make sure you can vote with confidence. All right. Now we are going to talk about broadband here in the state of Arkansas. I've got one of my guests, Joseph Sanford, MD, who's the director of the UAMS Institute for Digital Health and Innovation. He is working his way into the studio as we speak, but right now I've got on the line Lou McAlister, who is the CEO of Broadband Development Group LLC. And this is going to be a 3 or 4 way conversation. We're going to talk about broadband here in the state of Arkansas, from when we first identified there was a need and what has been done, what is being done, and what we hope to get done. And it'll give you a better idea of how we are trying to attack the problem of getting broadband internet service expanded throughout the state. So, Lou, I thank you for taking time to be on the Kim Hammer Show. And why don't you just explain to them a little bit of what your position as CEO with Broadband Development Group LLC is, and what your role is in helping get broadband pushed throughout the state.
Kim, thanks very much for having me on, and I'm looking forward to Dr. Sanford and maybe some of the other folks that will be on as well. We started Broadband Development Group about 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, because we knew that there was a crying need in the state for better broadband internet service, and we wanted to be a part of the solution. So we got our group organized and started doing that. We had been looking forward to reaching across the state and working not just in the urban areas, but in the rural areas as well. And as our business has evolved, we do pretty much stay in urban and suburban areas, but we like to participate as much as we can with the other providers and the public, the policymakers and the communities to try to help and solve this problem, because we think good broadband internet service is the paved road of the 21st century. We think it's critical for our children's education, for our economic development, and we think of it as a privilege to be participating in this effort by the state, by the legislature, by UAMS, and all the other providers out there.
I think part of what is confusing even to some of us legislators, sadly to admit, but we're getting up to speed and getting educated on it. Some are more advanced in it, others are catching up, but also maybe to the general public, and that is there's so many moving parts when it comes to broadband. It was like we all knew there was a need. One day that need started to be addressed, and then you got the pandemic that came in on top of it all, and it really focused on the need for us to make broadband development in the state of Arkansas even more important. I know the governor had done some things through some initiatives as far as, wanting certain courses taught in school, and some of the schools didn't have the broadband capability to carry what was being required. And then you throw telemedicine on top of that, and all of a sudden it's like the perfect storm where it's all come together. And then you got COVID money that's coming down, and a whole bunch of money is being thrown at this thing. But one of the things that we want as legislators is to make sure that the money that is coming down is getting the biggest bang for the buck, as far as making sure that we have a good systematic plan across the state. I said all that to say this. Lou was in a meeting down in Grant County, there in the community of Tall, and Representative Bragg was there, and he traveled around with you to several areas in his community, and you were doing a survey of the population to determine the need. What is it that you are uniquely doing, using that as a model or a prototype that could be duplicated across the other 75 counties that would help us develop the plan that would make it most effective use of the money?
That's a great question, and I think
that was a long question, I know, but thank you.
I think the critical, kind of the approach that a lot of has been taken often, is that we look at what providers say they provide, and we go to various federal agencies and state agencies and look at maps that are provided by providers and we do surveys. We ask and we try to get as much much of the data from public databases as we can. And that's kind of something that almost everybody in the industry does. I think the critical difference for what we did in Grant County, that I'm especially proud of, by the way, is that we have been in Grant County, all over Grant County. You mentioned Tull, Leola, Pullen, Prattsville, Sheridan, all over the county. We have met numerous times with county judge, every mayor, school superintendents, teachers, just in going into communities and asking people to come out and have town hall meetings, because we wanted to see and hear what people were really experiencing. And I think that's a critical difference in what we did in Grant County. I would like to do that statewide. I've sort of estimated that would be 450 meetings, and so about 450 hours. That's a lot of time to spend. I probably can't do all of that personally, in just a few days or a few weeks. But that's something that we think is critical. That it's one thing to see the reports from providers. It's one thing to see what government statistics and census statistics say, but there's a third component to that, and it's really just being in the community, taking the time to talk to people in schools, in churches, in city halls, community centers, courthouses, anywhere people are, coffee shops, any place people are gathering, to find out what's really going on, and then trying to factor that in as well. I think my team learned a lot by doing that in Grant County, and I think it has informed the report that we've turned over to the folks that we were working for, Kickstart Sheridan.
Okay.
Group. So,
right.
Yeah.
Let me hit the pause button because I've got to take a break at the bottom of the hour, and Dr. Sanford has joined me in studio, and also Senator Missy Irvin, who's been a key player in all this since the beginning, is joining online. What we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, I'm going to lay the groundwork a little bit, and then everybody's going to contribute to the conversation. So when this show is done today on the Kim Hammer Show, people have a good idea of where we are in the broadband development and also where we are trying to get to and when we are trying to get there. You're listening to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM The Answer. You can go up to my website, which is www.thekimhammershow, to stay up on current events and also some other materials that we'll be putting up on there as a result of this conversation today. We're going to take a hard break, and we'll be back in just a minute on the Kim Hammer Show. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM The Answer. Want to remind you, this is Father's Day weekend, so make sure that you take care of Dad tomorrow, whenever it is that you have a time to celebrate as a family, or if you're doing that today. And if you're looking to do something today to celebrate, don't forget about Wings Over Bryant that's occurring down at the Saline County Airport there in Bryant. And you can go by the big red stations, pick up tickets, or you can get tickets at the gate, but you'll need to pay cash. And there's still time to get out there to enjoy the 25 vendors, the 20 food trucks, and they've got every kind of food under the sun, so you'll be able to find whatever you want on the menu that your taste buds are calling for you to eat. And then they've got the air show that's going on, and they have had some great acts, and let me tell you, there's better to come. And so it's a huge event. Don't let it discourage you that there's only about 2 or 3 hours left. You still got time to get out there and enjoy the Wings Over Bryant Air Show there at the Saline County Airport in Bryant. All right, now we're back on the subject of broadband development here in the state of Arkansas. I've got on the radio, or on the phone, excuse me, Lou McAlister, who's the CEO of Broadband Development Group LLC, and he's been talking a little bit about his role in this. I've got Senator Missy Irvin, who's joined on the radio or on the phone, who's kind of helped in the pioneer process of all this getting started with some legislation she passed. And now in studio also have Dr. Joseph Sanford, MD, who is the director of UAMS Institute. So let me start off by just laying the groundwork. We're here in the middle of trying to get all this broadband development up in the state. We've got a lot of money that's come down through the CARES Act already. We've got more money coming down as a result of the new stimulus package that's being sent down. Then there's some state funds that are in there. UAMS has kind of been pointed as the, I would say, chief engineer, kind of look at the project kind of thing. And I'll let you clean up the mess there, Dr. Sanford, if I got that wrong. And Senator Irvin kind of got the ball rolling a couple sessions ago by getting some legislation passed that would put the spotlight on it. So here's where we're going to go. Senator Irvin, I want you to talk about how broadband focus in its inception got started here in the state, because you were a key player in that. Let me let you talk about that for a few seconds and deliver into it how Dr. Sanford plays a part in that, in the role that UAMS has in it, and then we'll hit the pause button and have a general conversation. Senator Missy Irvin.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's great to be with you again on your show. Great to be with Lou and Dr. Sanford and you as well. So this broadband and access to high-speed internet is probably one of the number one topics around anybody's kitchen table. And it is necessary for the mom, the dad, and the kids at all different levels of their life at this point. It could be that you're working from home. It could be that your elderly parent needs to have a telehealth visit. It could be that your children are having to do online coursework. It could be that you're trying to run your own small business from your front porch. And we're a rural state, and our lack to high-speed internet access is crippling us in rural economic development. When you're out shopping for a piece of real estate, one of the top questions is, do I have internet capability and access at this house or in this property? And if not, how do I get it and how much it's going to cost me? That's not just a question that residents or homeowners are trying to ask, but it's also businesses and where they're locating their businesses and the quality of high-speed internet, because they have to have it for their billing or for their operations. So it has become a utility into the fact that it's necessary, just like flipping on a switch and needing electricity or running water. It has become that new infrastructure demand that we need for our citizens to make sure that we continue developing economically. So, you know, this was a conversation that a lot of us were having that led us to really revise and look at our legislation to make sure that our legislation wasn't restrictive in who could provide the solutions to broadband. And so that's how this whole ball kind of got started, was we changed the legislation to make our state less restrictive so that more people could offer those solutions to provide high-speed internet to our citizens. We were the 6th most restrictive state in the country when it came to our legislation. So that was the first step to get that fixed. The second step was to understand that we need to do what we can to build out this infrastructure and do it in a systematic and intentional way. One of the ways that we kept talking about and suggesting and needing, and then finally wrote legislation, was to create the Rural Broadband ID program. And that is a grant program that incentivizes communities to collaborate and get together and study and figure out what they need, and to pay for the due diligence studies that are needed to apply for all the federal dollars that are available. And there's tons of them. And so, you know, we kept saying, this is the grant program we want. This is what we want to do. We want to maximize the ability of a state dollar to get more federal dollars pulled into our state. We do that in Medicaid. We do that in education. Why shouldn't we do it here in broadband and building out infrastructure? So that led us to that discussion. The reason we chose UAMS Office of Digital Health was because they are the brain trust. They actually know, they're the engineers. Because of a federal grant they got years ago that set them up, they know the infrastructure and the assets and the inventory of broadband that we have, and are the ones that we need to tap into to say, where do we need to go from here? How do we actually make a comprehensive and intentional map of coverage so that people aren't paying too much for a very poor quality or don't have internet access at all? So that's how they've come into play, and it's working with Department of Commerce and the Office of Broadband to not just throw money at a problem, but actually figure out where we want to be in the next 5 years. Set some goals, set a plan of action, and let's get there. But you have to have input from people like Lou and understanding what all he has learned. You have to have input from all the stakeholders in order to develop that plan of action.
Okay. Let me interrupt you and go to Dr. Sanford. So where are you with the challenge that has been given to you? You are already existing entity within UAMS. This has been dumped in your lap to be able to take on. So give the people an idea where you are. And part of the reason you got it was because you already had the infrastructure laid out there, and it did tie in with what we were trying to do with telemedicine and other things that was brought into the conversation by the COVID situation. So where are you in the job that's been given to you?
Yes, sir. And I wouldn't characterize it as dumped. We're very privileged to get to work with the legislature and Senator Irvin. So we are currently in about the halfway point of the Rural Broadband ID program. We have, as of today, approved, if memory serves, 16 grants, comprising a little over half of the initial $2 million seed money. They are at various stages of completion. They have about a 6-month timeline to do their due diligence grants and submit their final report. So we started submitting these as long ago as about 6 months.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. We started submitting and awarding these grants about 6 to 8 months ago now, if memory serves. And we are expecting our initial reports back on those first projects in a rolling basis thereafter.
Who are they? Are we talking Windstream, Aristotle, the co-ops? Who are we talking about?
So, no, they in this question are cities, counties, unincorporated communities, all Arkansas citizens and constituents. Those are the primary applicants. They may partner with a Windstream, with an electric co-op, ISP, who can provide technical assistance and expertise, but this money is going to the communities directly to fund their own investment in themselves.
Right, which was part of what the legislation created, was the opportunity for, and every year we get another piece of the broadband by additional legislation being passed where we identify things that need to be done. But for what you're talking about, you're hitting mainly the concentrated area of people and working with the providers to meet those needs. Is that it?
That's a fair thing to say, yes, sir.
Okay, so what about the rural areas? Because we just yesterday in ALC had a conversation, about money going out to the rural areas. We approved $30 million, but we didn't approve $115, not because we don't think it's needed, but because we want to see the fully developed plan to make sure that the rural areas as well as other areas are going to get it. Enlighten us on what's happening as far as taking care of the rural areas.
So I would say that there are two programs really addressing that. The Rural Broadband ID program is not limited strictly to areas of population concentration, though we do have many cities and more populous counties applying for them. We do have some of the less populated areas as well. So population density is not a requirement to be eligible for the grant. In terms of rollout for more shovel-ready projects, that would be the Arkansas Rural Connect program being managed by the Department of Commerce. And those are where the funds you were talking about would be going to in order to expand more directly, less perspective and more directly ready for build-out development.
Right. And Senator Irvin, you were in that meeting yesterday, so you can weigh in on this. Part of the discussion yesterday was that there was $30 million worth of, as you called them, shoveled ready, which means they've complied with all the requirements. And we know that the feds have kind of changed the rules of the game a little bit as far as that 100 to 100 versus the technical aspect of making sure that what's going out there is going to be able to meet not only the needs of today, but the needs of the future as far as the demand. We approved the $30 million shovel-ready ones, but the other ones still had work to do in order to get ready to be able to get that money. And that's part of what the holdup was we weren't comfortable releasing that money to the Department of Commerce without them having fully vetted those that had applied for the grants to be truly shovel-ready to go, like those that are getting the $30 million were. Missy, is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, that's a fair characterization. I mean, so the federal guidelines said that this money has to be spent on fiber projects. Okay, and so we know that. Okay, well then that's what it says, and those are the kind of grant projects then that we need to approve. If we can't spend the money on fixed wireless, then we can't do that. So don't bring it before the legislature asking for something that we actually can't do under the federal guidelines. Might not be I know they're applying for a waiver, but we also need to say, is this, and then take a step back and say, well, wait a minute. Is the fixed wireless a solution for those areas, or can we put fiber there? And if we can put fiber there, then let's go ahead and do it. Even if it costs us more money, we want to make sure we're going to put a 4-lane highway in where we need a 4-way highway. I don't want a dirt road where we need a highway. On the flip side, I don't want, a highway where we just need a dirt road. And it's that kind of perspective that I think the legislature is wanting. We want to spend money on broadband. All of us want to solve this problem as quickly as possible. But where are we as far as our goals? And we want to make sure we're building out to the maximum of infrastructure that is needed for our citizens. We don't want to underbuild. We don't want to have to redo the road, 2 years from now. We want to make sure we get it done right the first time and that it's comprehensive so that we don't have a map that's just haphazard, but that we have intentionality about what we're doing and how we're doing it and coordinating all these different pots of money so that we're spending the money in a way that makes sense and a way that solves the problem for the state and one that encourages competition where we can, because we know that drives prices down for our citizens when they're shopping for their internet. So all of those factors need to be weighed and taken into consideration before we just throw money at a project. I mean, you don't build a road system in the state of Arkansas through a grant program. It's more than that. You have to say, okay, can we spend the money to get fiber as far as we can? But then here's a solution that we need, that's going to be a different solution to get us to these households. Okay. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But yes, we approved that the $30 million was for shovel ready. That's 100 up, 100 down, high speed, which is what the federal guidelines require. The other $150 million was comprised of projects that were a mix of fiber at a lesser speed, which is not going to be adequate, or a fixed wireless, which we can't do currently under the federal guidelines. So, bring it back to us, correct it, work with those people, bring it back to us. And yeah, let's do this step by step, but let's be very intentional about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
All right. So let me go to Lou now, because Lou, you own a company that actually provides broadband services, but you concentrate on the metropolitan areas. And yet you have been hired as a consultant to help map out part of a strategy to reach throughout Arkansas. Is that a fair characterization?
Not quite on a statewide basis. We've been hired to do a handful of the UAMS Rural Broadband ID grants. So we've been around different parts of the state, but we're not statewide.
Okay.
I want to be fair about that part.
Sure, but
so yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, talk about what you've done in the area that you have had responsibility to develop the plan. You hit on it a while ago, and then I want to do a follow-up question. So just real quickly, talk about where you've heard all the conversations so far. What have you done in the area that you had responsibility to provide that consulting service, and what are the benefits of the efforts that you've put in so far?
So and this is pretty much true across all of the areas that we've studied, Kim, and that what we've discovered is that the maps that are out there that show where service is and where service isn't are not necessarily very accurate. that's an open secret. Everybody understand, or everybody associated with this process understands that. But we have gone out into the communities and visited, boots on the ground with people and found out where the need is greatest. And what we've been able to do is look at a variety of technologies. Fiber optic cable is great stuff. There's a place for fixed wireless. There's a place for other kinds of technologies. So we're trying to show where technologies are applicable and can be used efficiently and wisely to solve the problem. Spend, to Senator Irvin's point, spend the money correctly as well as possible. We believe in providing incentives for private investment and promoting competition. We think communities benefit from that. And we've been able to get community leaders talking to providers and potential providers to have a real dialogue about things like rates and coverages and speeds and the kinds of investments that companies are willing to make if they have some incentive or some boost from some of these grants that can help the business case work. So that's, I think the real crux of the thing for us has been that we've been able to foster those conversations about rates and competition and appropriate technologies to get the service around to everybody, to every community in the state.
All right, let me interrupt because Dr. Sanford was nodding his head yes the whole time you were talking. So let me let him throw in and compliment or compete with what you said.
Not a competition at all. I would agree strongly with the description of the mapping challenge, and I think one of the great benefits of this project and these projects on both the Broadband ID and Arkansas Connect is having a real on-the-ground understanding of what the availability and actual user experience is like, above and beyond what the FCC defines as access to broadband. It's not that the access to data is not useful in and of itself, but there is a much more granular experiential data set to be gathered there, and it's only through these processes that we can get that data.
So what you're saying is one set of data showed this, but the boots on the ground, such as what Lou has done, brings about the complete picture.
Yeah.
And the reality of what the needs are. Because I know when you came down to Tull down there, Lou, you passed out a survey form. You did that in all of Grant County, which was one of your designated areas to work in, I think. And right. That was reality at the level of which people live as far as what they need. Now the job is, based on that reality, what's the most effective way to get the services there, whether it's the wireless internet or whether it's the fiber optic. That's part of where it comes into the plan. What do we need to do to get it fixed?
Precisely. It's a question of taking a yes, no, and expanding it into on a scale of 1 to 10, or it's especially what time of day are you having good internet? Are you having bad internet? Is that time of day conducive to business or conducive to a personal consumer experience? And that's where really the symmetrical 100 up, 100 down becomes very important. That upload speed, which in the original construction of the internet, none of the engineers were thinking that we would have a reality that we're currently in where it's just as important at home to be sending data up. It was a consumer-built internet. Now this symmetrical need is something that if we can get ahead of this in the state of Arkansas for digital health, for agribusiness, for retail industry, the world is our oyster. We really have an incredible opportunity here by making this investment.
All right, real quick in 30 seconds or less, 100 up, 100 down. That what does that mean?
Sure. So 100 is in terms of megabit. It's just think of it as an arbitrary number speaking to quality of your internet experience. So your viewers watching us on Facebook Live, if they have 1 megabit now, they're getting a very choppy, stuttery experience. If they've got 5 megabit, it's not terrible, but it's not great. At 25, you're watching us in high def. At 100, 4 people in your household are watching us at high def. And then the upload speed is similarly important. And we care about that in digital medicine because we want to see a really high quality patient experience where we can help make diagnoses, give them the medical advice and education that they need, and have that seamless proxy for the in-person experience where it's most appropriate.
So
may I just say amen, amen, amen. I mean, thank you to both what Dr. Sanford and Lou have stated.
We have
amen.
arrived.
Yes, we have. But Senator Hammer, it's up to you and me and the legislature to take what they are saying and make sure that we do it that way, because we have a golden opportunity to do this right and get it done. And we've got the brain trust to do it. We've just got to connect the dots and get all the pieces in place and demand that it be done that way. So thank you for everything that you're saying.
Can I throw something in on that as well?
30 seconds.
A second for that. 30 seconds. Yeah. We have the pre-pandemic world, the post-pandemic world. That's where we are now. And Dr. Sanford and Senator Irvin are both exactly right. This is a passion project for some of us. We believe in this. We want this. This is a rare and special opportunity for a state like ours to prosper. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't seize that opportunity. We've got to do this for our children, our grandchildren, and for future generations. This is immensely important. We've got to get this right. So
I'm gonna give me a minute, because we're down to like under 2 minutes. So here's where I see it, and this is making the call. We got all the right players in the puzzle box. We got a bunch of floating pieces of the puzzle, and what we need to do is bring and solidify the pieces of the puzzle. I'm thinking, and this is not a commitment, but I'm thinking that for what Lou has done in those specific areas, if we could duplicate that as expeditiously across the state, that gives us as legislators the real viability to be able to go into areas and say, this is, and working with you, Dr. Sanford, this is where we need to be putting the money progressively now, working toward the end goal of getting everybody there. But we need to bring this conversation to the legislative level in order to be able to get this comprehensive approach to dealing with everything instead of this reactive way that we've been going. So we don't have to turn down money in ALC because we don't like the plan. We need to be cohesive in our approach going toward it. All right, I got like 1 minute or less. Missy, you got 15 seconds. Agree, disagree, or what?
100% agree. Yes, this is what we've been saying for the past 2, 3 years, 4 years we've been saying this. So it's just building that consensus. And yes, amen, 100% agree with you. And I know you're going to partner with me. And there's so many legislators that believe this on both sides of the aisle. And it's not just rural areas, it's urban areas that have these huge pockets that are just completely lacking. So it's a golden opportunity. We just got to do it right.
Okay. So, I'm down to the planes getting on the runway here. Dr. Sanford, thanks for being here. Lou McAlister, thank you for being here. Missy Irvin, thanks for being on the Kim Hammer Show today. Hang on, help is coming. If you ever watched the movie You've Got Mail, we're not going that way. We're going the other way, okay? And I promise you, it's coming. Thanks for being on the Kim Hammer Show today. Go out to Wings Over Bryant. You got time. Have a great day and great Father's Day.